let's go on in the conversation. Let's talk a little bit about sort of the alive part. This is sort of like we've gotten sort of basic stability, and we're ready to look forward. So here's a couple of points, and then maybe Scott, you and I can talk about them. Really getting good at our virtual communication rhythms, I think, is a key. So like in survive mode, we were figuring out how to do business virtually, but
Right.
now we've got to go beyond that. Now sort of doing business in a virtual world is our new reality. And now we've got to get really good at our meeting rhythms and our communication standards. So one of the best practices, some companies are doing it, others need to consider it, which is a communication rhythm called a daily huddle, where information is gathered at each level of the organization and then cascades up to the organization. They're short meetings. I know people are often reluctant to add meetings, but meetings are a sort of a necessary evil. They're allowing us to get the communication channels established through our company. And if we spend 15 minutes at the staff level with the managers gather and they spend 15 minutes communicating what's going on there, and then they spend 15 minutes with the senior people in the organization. So if you've got a 3-level organization, in 3 separate 15 minutes, you've communicated information from the bottom to the top of the organization, and it cycles back through the next day. And it's a very powerful tool. The weekly meetings are also critical to get the departments together on a weekly basis to listen to each department in terms of what's going on, what are the challenges, what are the problems we need to solve. And one of the things that I'm fond of talking about nowadays is intentional brainstorming. Companies don't do enough just absolute, so sit down and let's brainstorm a problem and then let's make some decisions about how to do things differently. Innovation is going to be key in this time period. So Scott, I'm curious in terms of your virtual communication rhythms, what changes have you made in your organization as a result of all the recent upheaval?
Yeah, so we've had a weekly leadership rhythm going for quite a long time. Recently, we had reduced that down to sort of the senior leadership level. And the reason we did that was to get more interaction, as you called it, and get more feedback. When the group was a little too big, not everybody was, willing or comfortable to talk as much. But because of the COVID-19 and the need to communicate more, we now do daily leadership huddles. And that rhythm has been incredible. So again, with that same theme of over communicate, we're all on. It's, technically you're supposed to be standing and in a room and doing it that way, but this has been fantastic. And so just getting the feedback immediately. And if I have a question for them, for me to have to put those people together on a schedule used to take 2 weeks. I know I've got 15 minutes with them every day, and I can survey them saying, hey, this is what we're facing right now. Do you guys have any input on that? And getting that instant feedback has been phenomenal for us.
Great. It's a good practice as well to leave the 15 minutes after your daily huddle free for those pop-up meetings that if you need to talk to 1 or 2 people from the huddle, they know you're always free during that time period. And it can be an effective, kind of way to stay in touch that way. Everyone knows their calendars are free for 15 minutes after the huddle. So
that's good. Yeah. We're not doing that. So
the next thing in terms of staying alive is we've got to look at our expense side. We've got to make sure that we're not spending any money foolishly, and we've got to cut out discretionary expenses that aren't really adding a return on investment. And this isn't just a finance team task. Certainly the finance team could be at the center of it, but I think we need to ask all of the departments to think about sort of what are we spending money on? I mean, who knows how many subscriptions we've signed up to over the years that we're not using the software anymore. And we just got to be thinking about what are we really using and what's returning, what are we getting return on investment from? Keep those things, but cut out things that aren't giving you such a good return. I want to be clear that marketing is not a discretionary expense, particularly in these kind of moments. You've got to make sure that you continue to get your sort of message out. You can change the method of getting the message out, but it's very important to keep communicating. Companies that cut back on marketing in recessions are sort of the stories are endless about how they lost market share to companies that were continuing to market. Just make sure you're getting a good return on investment of your marketing dollars. So I'm kind of curious, Scott, whether you've had an opportunity to look through kind of current expenses and have you been making some hard decisions? I suspect there's always hard decisions in these time periods.
Yeah, so check, and check. We literally ran an audit on all subscriptions. We certainly uncovered a handful that nobody even knew why we were still, subscribing to them. Yep. So that was really good. We've called and made contact with every single vendor we do business with and asked them to do one of three things, reduce their rates, postpone, and preferably both. So we're taking all actions that we can take to protect cash flow is what we're doing, because we know we have a little bit of a long haul here, whether it's a quarter or 2 quarters. It will end.
It will end. Yes.
It's not going to end in 2 weeks. It's probably this year, to be honest with you. So we're being really, really responsible with all things cash flow, but we're doing exactly what you said. So I didn't know how many businesses really knew that. So we're doubling down on marketing right now. This is part of that, although this is more messaging and to help. And there's no particular ROI we're looking from this particular thing, but we want to invest in marketing quite heavily.
Yeah, content marketing.
Correct.
Pure and simple. Help people. Use your marketing right now to just get good messages out and help people. Eventually, that will change. But right now, if you get a salesy email from somebody, it just it just goes down. It's like my spine kind of just curls. It's like, oh, really? This is not the time. So you have to be really careful about the timing of messaging and whatnot. But be thinking about that. So let me go on to the next topic. I think it's critical that companies in the alive stage really focus on the next 90 days. We need a plan. Plan to me means we've got some key metrics identified that we really tune into that help us determine that our business is running in a healthy manner. And we've got sort of a best case, a worst case, and an expected case target for those metrics. We've got really well thought out leading indicators that help us to see where things are going. So there's certain metrics that tell us that things are either getting better or they're getting worse. We have to identify them and tune into those. And then we've got to make sure that we've got a really well formulated set of priorities that we're working on together as a team. And Scott, I know your team has this because we've been working on this for quite a while, but I'm kind of curious from your perspective, have you done anything differently as a result of the crisis with respect to your planning?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we absolutely simplified it for this quarter. And we too are fans of Patrick Lencioni. And so we recently, really for this quarter are applying his thematic goal process. And it's just really 3 simple things that you do. And one is to come up with a thematic goal, which we did, which is survive by getting revenue in and controlling expenses, which is exactly what you just said. And so then we brainstormed on how do we achieve that? So the leadership team got together and we agreed on the milestones that needed to take place this quarter. And what we decided was that, Bobby's not our director of marketing or I'm not the CEO. We just decided we work as leadership for one step and we weren't here representing a particular segment of our company. And it really tore down walls. It's incredible to watch. I think we're all a lot closer, which is kind of common when you have these sort of emergency type situations. And then we literally said, what are the metrics we need to watch? And we have about 12 metrics that we're looking at and that are leading indicators that would indicate that we are succeeding goal.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's important to note that change is disproportionately easy to make in this type of a time period. When you're in a crisis, you're right, people just naturally bond together. But in addition to that right now, because everyone's working remotely, there's no normal that we're comparing against. So if we ask people to implement some new change, they're more likely to just say, okay, I don't know how we're doing things anyway, so we might as well do it in this new way. So I think change is really easy. One more point I'll make, it's unfortunate but true, we've gone very rapidly from an employee kind of centric market where employees were really, it was easy to get a job. It was hard for employers to find good people. And unfortunately, we're going from a very low unemployment situation to a very high unemployment situation. We don't know how bad it's going to be, but just numbers, last week they came out were staggering for just the 1 week last week. So, people are going to want to hold on to their jobs, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to kind of get through this together. So change, I think, is going to be something that we're going to be able to do over the next 90 to 180 days. So let me throw one more point out here, and then I think we're going to be through the Alive part. This is sort of, we need to make sure that we're staying on top of governmental aid and legislation that's available, and we need to apply appropriately and quickly. You don't want to be at the end of the line, but it's so complex and there's so many options. It's a little daunting, but use whatever resources and, people that, there are a lot of people that are studying this that are available to help. There's a lot of resources online that's available. More and more are becoming available. Make your choices as to how you want to apply for federal, state, and maybe even local aid and get those applications going as quickly as you can, because the lines are going to be long. And as I said, you don't want to be at the end of that line. And so I'm curious, Scott, from that perspective, what are you doing there?
Well, I have to thank you for that one. We met a few weeks ago, and you asked us. So, what are you doing with regards to federal, state, and local aid? And we said, no, we're nothing. And you were like,
we don't need help. It's no problem.
You were like pointing fingers and everything. You were like, so when we hang up here, you are going to go research that. So we took those marching orders. And our director of finance, our CFO, have been literally studying, researching all that's available. This particular aid that's coming out, the CARES Act, is all through financial institutions. So we were like literally first in line. So it's like Costco at 5 a.m. And so we have our banker working on this aid, and we're up front on that line. So definitely you want to take advantage of all that's available, and there is a lot. And one other thing, Doug, is the amount available for employees. So yes. if a company has to lay some people off temporarily, or we really want our staff to know what's available. So we had a very small, minor layoff that we did, but we were like, here's the URL, here's what you can expect, this is how you get it. And they were like, oh my God, you guys are so awesome. Thank you so much. So we're not burning bridges, because we love our people, and as soon as we can, we're we're pulling back.
One of the key, I think, things for all leaders in this crisis is that we're going to be defining who we are as people during this, crazy time that we're living in. And people are watching very carefully. So we all need to be good citizens. We need to make sure that if, God forbid, you have to do a layoff, that people are taken care of. The government really is doing as much as it can to create a safe net for people to fall into, but it's never an easy thing to fall into that net. So I know other companies are trying to do whatever they can to hold on to their people, and legislation is out there to help those companies as well. But I know generationally, I think a lot of people are a little reluctant to take governmental aid. They feel somewhat it's like a sign of weakness, but I'm trying to get people to take a different paradigm on this. The government's making all this stimulus money available to keep our economy running. So it's almost like we have an imperative to make sure that we apply for it and get it and use it as an opportunity to kind of stimulate the economy and keep things running.